The Ethiopian Educational Media Agency presents educational satellite television programs.
Hello teacher, hello class. Welcome back to another episode of The Wonder of Photosynthesis. Why do I say the wonder of photosynthesis? Because, and I keep repeating myself, I consider this to be the most important of all processes that take place on Earth. Why? Because it is this process that fuels all life on Earth. This is the process that captures the energy from the sun and makes it available to all forms of life. This is the process that provides the energy for a fish to swim, a snake to crawl, a bird to fly, and a cricket to sing. With this energy we love, we fight, we work, and we play. This process puts the heat in the coals of our fires, in the petrol in our tanks. And to top it all, this process provides the oxygen that we breathe. So have you thanked a green plant today? And don't be shy, give it a little hug as well. If we all loved the plants that share this earth with us, and if we were all prepared to show it, our earth would have been a much better and much more beautiful place. No more destruction of our rainforests and pollution of our rivers and lakes and oceans. Oh, I'm getting carried away. Let's get on with the lesson of the day. Photosynthesis captures the energy in the rays of the sun, and respiration releases it inside the cells of living organisms. So even though they are the opposite of each other, they are part of the same process to get the energy of the sun inside our cells, where it can be applied to the very existence and maintenance of life. Do you remember our previous lesson, where we discussed photorespiration? As you will recall, in photorespiration, plant cells use oxygen and give off carbon dioxide in light. In other words, these cells carry out respiration instead of photosynthesis. Normally, in the presence of light, plants would carry out photosynthesis. However, this reverse situation happens mainly in C3 plants. In this lesson, we will be comparing photosynthesis and respiration. I expect by now that you all know the process of photosynthesis and respiration. By the end of this lesson, you will also know the similarities and differences between photosynthesis and respiration. Together, we are going to look at some of the things you have learnt about photosynthesis and respiration, and then we will draw up a comparison table. Let's begin. I will be reviewing aspects of photosynthesis and respiration to pick out similarities and differences. So please follow carefully. Photosynthesis and respiration are described as metabolic processes. The word metabolic is derived from the word metabolism. The word metabolism means all the chemical changes taking place in a living cell or organism. It includes building up or constructive processes called anabolism and breaking down processes called catabolism. Let us examine these two processes again. Anabolism, the building up process in cells, such as protein synthesis, formation of starch, and synthesis of urea. Catabolism, the breaking down process in cells, such as changing starch to sugar, and breaking down of glucose to release energy. Now think back to the process of photosynthesis. What happens during photosynthesis? Raw materials such as carbon dioxide and water are chemically combined using radiant energy to produce compounds such as glucose. This means that simple molecules CO2 and H2O are joined to form larger complex molecules such as glucose. This is a building up process or synthesis. It's just like the wall that was built using small component parts. So photosynthesis is an anabolic process. Students, do you remember the equation for photosynthesis, which we discussed a few lessons ago? I'm sure all of you do. I'm going to write this equation again. Carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of light, chlorophyll and enzymes produces glucose and oxygen. This equation can be represented as a sketch. This is a two-stage process with the light phase and dark phase. Both stages occur in the chloroplast and are controlled by enzymes. Let us look at the origin and fate of each substance involved. We will do this by way of a short test. Write your answers on a separate page. Please study the diagram and the equation when answering the questions. You are free to discuss the questions with your fellow students and with your teacher. You may also use your textbooks to find the answers. This is not a test. This is a student activity. You have about 3 minutes to answer the questions. Name the gas that is taken into the chloroplast. Where does the plant obtain this gas from? Through what part of the leaf does this gas enter? Where and how did the cell get the water? Name the source of energy in photosynthesis. What substance absorbs the energy? What gas is released during photosynthesis? In one sentence, explain the source of this gas. During which phase of photosynthesis is the gas released? What happens to the glucose that is formed? time is up. I will now show you the answers. Please check your work. 1. Carbon dioxide. 2. The atmosphere. 3. Stomata. 4. From the soil absorbed by the roots. 5. The sun, radiant energy. 6. Chlorophyll. 7. Oxygen, O2. 8. From the split water molecule. 9. Light phase. 10. Some is used up in the cell and some is changed to starch. From your answers and the diagram, you can see that there are 2 phases or reactions. During the light phase or reactions, chlorophyll absorbs light energy which is given to electron carriers. It is this energy that is used to split the water molecule or combine carbon dioxide with hydrogen. Water is used in this process. Water is absorbed by the roots of the plant from the soil. Water is split to provide the hydrogen which combines with CO2, reducing it to sugar. Oxygen from the split water is released into the atmosphere. During the dark phase or reactions, CO2 is used or taken into the chloroplast to produce food or glucose. Carbon dioxide is obtained from the atmosphere. It enters the leaf through the stomata. Enzymes regulate the reactions of the dark phase. Please note that carbon dioxide and water are taken into the plant. Carbon dioxide is combined with hydrogen to form energy-rich glucose. Students, take careful note that a compound molecule, glucose, is synthesized from raw materials. Some of this glucose is used by the plant. The rest is converted to starch and stored. Thus we see that photosynthesis is an anabolic process. Is respiration also an anabolic or building up process, or is it catabolic? Let's check. Do you recall glycolysis and the Krebs cycle? These are processes in respiration. During this process, fuel molecules, such as glucose, are broken down to release energy in cells. This is represented by the equation C6H12O6 plus O2 in the presence of enzymes leads to CO2 plus H2O plus energy. Note that glucose, C6H12O6, a carbohydrate molecule, is broken down to CO2 and water. So respiration will be described as a catabolic process. I will now put a diagram of a typical plant cell on the screen for you. You have seen it before, so you should be quite familiar with it. Can you identify the part labeled A? Very good. It seems all of you had the correct answer. It is the chloroplast. Next question. What important process takes place in this organelle? Of course, it is photosynthesis. Now an important question. Does photosynthesis take place only in this organelle, or does it also take place in parts of the cytoplasm? You would be correct if you said that photosynthesis takes place only within the chloroplast. Study the diagram now shown on the screen. This is a diagram of a plant cell. Identify the organelle labeled B. Your answer should be mitochondrion. What important process takes place in this organelle? Yes, it is cellular respiration. Some of you may have said Krebs cycle and electron transport system. That is also correct. Does cellular respiration take place only in the mitochondrion? No. Respiration occurs both in the cytosol and in the mitochondrion. The first stage of cellular respiration occurs in the cytoplasm or cytosol. This stage is known as glycolysis. Then, the Krebs cycle and electron transfer system occur in the mitochondrion. Study the diagram on the screen. Remember, you saw this diagram in the lesson on glycolysis. I am now going to show you on the screen the equation representing the reactions of respiration. C6H12O6 plus O2 in the presence of an enzyme leads to CO2 plus H2O plus energy. Students, I suggest you copy this equation into your books. Study the equation and the diagram on the screen. Use the two to answer the following questions. What happens to the glucose in the cytoplasm? Name the gas that is taken into the mitochondrion. From the equation that you see, is energy being taken in or is it released? What gas is released from the mitochondrion? Besides the gas named in 4, what other substance is released from the mitochondrion? Students, you have about 4 minutes to work on these questions, starting from now. Time is up. The correct answers are shown on the screen. Please check your answers. 1. Glucose is broken down into 2 pyruvic acids during glycolysis. 2. Oxygen. 3. Energy is released. 4. CO2. 5. Water. Looking at the answers to the questions on respiration, we can say A. A compound molecule, glucose, is broken down first to pyruvic acid and eventually to CO2 and H2O, releasing energy in the process. B. This is a catabolic or breaking down process. C. Electrons associated with hydrogen are transported by carriers to oxygen. Oxygen from the atmosphere is taken in to combine with hydrogen, thus forming water. D. Carbon dioxide is given off as a waste product. E. Enzymes regulate the whole process. F. Electrons lose energy along the way. This energy is used to synthesize ATP. G. ATP is used for various activities in the cell. We have briefly summarized the reactions of photosynthesis and respiration. We will now compare the two processes. From what we have discussed so far in this lesson, do you think you can draw up a table of comparison between the two processes? I'm sure you can. Try. You can discuss this with your friends. I will give you about 3 minutes to complete this task. Okay, time's up. I will put my list of the comparisons on the screen. Check your work against the list. The one obvious similarity that you can see is that enzymes catalyze or speed up both reactions. Students, we have come to the end of the topic on comparisons. You will see from my final list of comparisons that the two processes, photosynthesis and respiration, were compared item for item. In other words, when we talk about oxygen being used up during respiration, we have to consider whether the same happens in photosynthesis or if it is different. And if so, how? Students, I am sure that you will remember